For one final time underneath the California sun, we welcome you into Special Edition alongside Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton of DallasCowboys.com. I'm Kyle Yeomans as the Cowboys and the Chargers wrap up an entire week of festivities in Costa Mesa, California, starting with 2 joint practices on the field behind us. They're already tearing down Chargers camp because it's the end of the summer. The Cowboys will be heading back to Frisco, and of course the game on Saturday at SoFi Stadium, of course, concluded by this point as well. But Isaiah, it's been a long week. Lots of growth being had on both sides of the football, offensively, defensively for the Cowboys. What kind of improvement did you see from this team in Chargers week?
The intensity. The intensity is substantially higher than what it was against the Denver Broncos during that practice week. These guys needed to come off of a bad week of practice, a bad game, and correct some things in terms of the penalties. And I think they matched the intensity and the talent level that the Los Angeles Chargers had to present.
And I'll just echo that. I mean, they did a great job of practicing. What I liked was the tempo of the offense coming out. We normally take us 3 series to get going. They got going. 3 series they were in and they were going. I liked the tempo they had this week.
It really seemed like there was a considerable effort on the side of the coaching staff, Mike McCarthy, and even some of the youth from the Cowboys really stepping up on the fields behind us. But it wasn't pretty in Denver. It was rough. It was upside down. It was up and down at different times. I mean, it was not a clean week of practice, but Isaiah really felt like there was a change in the mentality and that intensity behind the field or on the fields behind us that the Cowboys really brought to each of these practices.
So I know there's an old saying by some gentleman by the name of Mike Tyson. He said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well, Denver Broncos punched Dallas in the mouth last week, and it was an awakening that they needed. Some of the coaching staff even said, you know what, they needed that. They needed something to wake them up and make them understand that, hey, you have to raise your level of intensity and execution because you're playing against the best in the world.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, from the young guys to the old guys, everybody was upbeat. They was going at. And I want to just say for the 2 teams, the way you practiced this week was a superb job with all the professionals I've not seen in a long time.
Yeah, it really has been a nice uptick from what you saw in Denver. But when you talk about the Chargers, I mean, you talk about both sides of the football, the offense and the defensive side. I mean, it really has been really impressive what they've built in terms of that roster. Why were they such a good matchup for the Cowboys to learn from this week?
Because this is probably the best team on paper in the NFL.
Wow.
You forget the AFC West. This is on paper. These guys have a lot of dudes. And it was amazing. It was awesome for the offensive line to face this defensive line in terms of Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. And then you got the Derwin James on defense, J.C. Jackson, and Asante Samuel Jr. This defense was stacked. And then offensively, you got Herbert, one of the best young quarterbacks out there. Eckler, good running back. You got Gerald Everett at tight end. You got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Slade. I mean, these guys are stacked. So it's really good when you can play against that level of competition in a practice setting because you get the absolute real.
They got a bunch of dogs, and they coming, man. And this would be such a great game for our offensive line because, from across the line, they got it. They got Van Noort, as I'm pronouncing that.
Yeah.
That linebacker. So they across the line on all 3 levels. We will see our offensive line mature this week, man, and get better because of what they did on the field practicing.
Well, that's the thing. You had 2 practices, not just the game on Saturday, but you had 2 practices throughout this week to really get better and go up against talent like we saw on the field with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and Kyle Van Noy, like you mentioned. I mean, each level of that defense, Derwin James was limited, but still he was out there every once in a while. J.C. Jackson, who's been one of the leading interceptions guys over the last couple of years. Plenty to learn from, and it really felt like there was a conservative effort from the Cowboys to take that next step, and they certainly did so throughout the week here in Los Angeles. But when we come back, we're going to take a step-by-step look all the way through some of the question mark positions on this team. I mean, offensively and defensively. When we come back, is there pressure on putting pressure? How does the pass rush stack up coming into this 2022 season? When we come back with more Special Edition.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas. Reliant, an NRG company. Blockchain.com, trusted by millions, trusted by America's team. And by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. This segment is brought to you by Salvation Army, Love Beyond.
It takes extra commitment. for sure, because we got a lot of young guys looking up to you. You understand that, you wanted the big tools on the defense, so you want to really, tread lightly and make sure, you're doing everything you can to help us win.
Welcome back to the second segment here of Special Edition from Costa Mesa, California, wrapping up training camp on the West Coast. We just heard from DeMarcus Lawrence, presented by Texas Lotto. And, DeMarcus Lawrence has got some pressure on him. This defensive line has some pressure on them as a whole. When you look at the group top to bottom, Isaiah, do you feel like there's enough talent there to get the job done from the beginning to the end of the season?
I believe holistically that this defensive line is collectively better than they were last year. I don't feel as if they have just these dominant pass rushers that can just go out there and get the quarterback whenever they want to. They did add some guys. Micah Parsons is still that guy. He's still that dynamic individual. However, you think about the Ridgeways, the Bohannas, the Neville Gallimores, and all these guys that collectively come together to prevent teams from being able to have effective rushing games. Now you're forcing teams to be in third and long. And now Dan Quinn can get in his bucket, he can get in his bag, and he can stir up whatever he wants to in terms of packages to create mismatches on that front.
You went out and got Dante Fowler. You drafted Sam Williams. These are guys that's going to be a part of the rotation. Armstrong has gotten better. Now you have Michael Parsons. You have Anthony Barr. So no matter what package they put on the field, along with number 90, it's gonna be hell to pay.
You mentioned number 90 there. DeMarcus Lawrence, we talked about it heard from him at the top of the segment, but how much pressure is on him specifically? Only played the 7 games last year, still had 3 sacks, but is he flying a little bit under the radar as we get into the regular season?
I think he probably likes it that way. I think he is flying under the radar. He took a significant pay cut, right? He cut his hair. There's a lot that got cut.
Talk about a cut.
Cut. So there's a lot that I'm sure he's applying that pressure on himself. But in terms of the expectations from the organizations, I don't think that they're putting that on him like they have in recent years.
You know what? He's going to be just fine. I think he's as healthy as he's been. He's going through this situation. Like you say, he cut his hair. It's not a Samson effect. He's not lost his strength. But now by adding Parsons, I keep mentioning Barr, by adding these 2 guys and keeping them in there at all times, one-on-one pass blocking. This is something he's never faced. He will face a lot of that this year.
And, of course, they replaced Randy Gregory on the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. Nate, when you look at the edge rusher spot opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence, I'm sure Michael Parsons will probably be in the mix there. But have Dorrance Armstrong and Terrell Basham done enough to you to feel confident in what they bring to the table?
As a unit, yes.
Okay.
And Basham is having a nice camp. Armstrong, he's a player that's on the field. special teams, regular defense. He's a 65% plus player that's giving you snaps. So this is what you need.
Yeah.
I like him. I like Armstrong. I like the versatility that he gives the organization. That's why they gave him the check. That's why they gave him the money. He earned his keep. And to Nate's point, he's on the field so much that he is such a pillar on this defense and on the special teams.
Yeah, and he signed that big deal throughout the offseason, really as a confidence boost to him, but it also to the defensive line, putting these edge rushers out there and saying, hey, Dorrance, you've done enough to this point to earn this. Now go out and do it again, and maybe you can get something else out of that. Now let's move to the inside. Interior defensive line has been an exciting president for the Cowboys. So many guys defensively that are kind of put into the mix there and could ultimately, as we've got plenty of people driving around and getting things taken care of here, there's plenty of talent on the interior. Where are you most impressed with guys throughout training camp?
I've liked what I've seen out of Tristan Hill, out of Osa Odigizua, out of Gallimore. These guys have all been in this rotation, and they are all doing a good job of not only getting vertical, but using their strengths. Whether it's being strong or whether you're a vertical seam guy, they're playing to what they do best.
And you said it earlier in the earlier segment. Stop the run so you can become a pass rusher, so you can eat big. But if we don't stop the run, you won't play.
Yeah, you won't. Have the Cowboys done enough to show that they can stop the run in these practices?
So far, so good. I'm hyped. I'm hopeful.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Hey, you went up against a good rushing attack last week with Javonte Williams in practice, and you had a couple guys there. They even saw Jaquan Hardy, former Cowboy, in the game against Denver. You did the same thing this week with Austin Eckler, Isaiah Simmons, who was an early round pick. They have some running backs that they've gone up against, not in their own uniform, and they've been able to shut those guys down on a couple of occasions. Speaking of sticking out, let's go to Dalton Schultz when we come back on the other side of the break here on Special Edition. Can he prove that he's an elite tight end here in the NFL?
This segment was brought to you by Salvation Army. Love Beyond. This segment is brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas.
You know, I think that just being that kind of vocal leader for the younger guys, that's something that I did in college, and I'm happy to do here, because obviously this is not a one-person plays type deal. I mean, there's multiple tight ends in the field at all times. This is not a I don't want to help you. I want to help foster that, because at the end of the day, I want to be next to somebody who is just as dedicated and knows his job just as well as I do.
Welcome back to Special Edition. That was Dalton Schultz speaking on really what kind of role he could have going into this 2022 season, brought to you by AT&T. Let's speak on Dalton Schultz. I mean, he's on the franchise tag, nearly $11 million on his deal this season. That's 2 ones on the million prior to the million after the dollar sign. What kind of impact can he have on this offense, and how much will the Cowboys really rely on him? Doubled his touchdown total. Does that carry over into 2022?
I have the same question, Kyle. I'm not sure if it does carry over. I know that he had an amazing last season. I know that he's been a very dependable and reliable resource for QB1. However, you still need a guy to play with you in accordance with you. So you're looking at, Sean McEwen, you're looking at Ferguson, the draft pick. Are these guys going to be able to complement him and be able to allow for him to be able to get out and run routes and be that dependable guy for Dak?
He's going to have to be. Barring injury, this dude's going to be right at 100 passes, maybe 10 to 12 touchdowns, close to 1,000 or maybe over. He is the man. Woo. He is the man. Every time Dak gets in trouble, he's the first guy he looks at. It's not CeeDee Lamb or some of these young studs that's trying to show that they belong. It is him. And I've seen him make some catches not last week and this week that are nice. He is the man, and I think he knows it.
Well, can he be elite by just being a safety blanket? That's the biggest question, because you're comparing him numbers-wise up there with the Travis Kelce's and the George Kittles, and at least on the field, it hasn't looked like he's lived up to that.
70-something passes last year?
Yeah.
Over 70 passes, close to 800 or 900 yards? Yeah. He is the man, and what he's been showing in practice is not an elite, but it is good. And good is what we're going to need from him, and a little bit more.
Reliability doesn't require you to be amazing.
Okay.
You think about the Jason Witten, right? Freaking amazing tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Witt wasn't a big play guy. Witt wasn't going to run away from anybody, but Witt was always where he needed to be.
Sure.
He did what he was supposed to do. He knew his assignments, and he was dependable. That's exactly what Schultz is to QB1 here, Dak Prescott.
Yeah, keep that in mind, I think, when you look at the expectations for Dalton Schultz. But you mentioned Jake Ferguson a little bit earlier, the rookie out of Wisconsin. There's a lot of high hopes for him as a fourth-round draft pick. What area of his game does he need to improve the most? Because he's heralded as this all-around tight end. What area can he help this team the most in?
I think he just has to continue to learn the intricacies of the game. I think understanding the assignments, understanding the scheme, understanding where he can help at, what he can and can't get away with. There's just so much that he has to continue to learn, and the only way he's going to get better at that is by continuous reps. And
make sure that what he's talking about, these little inside moves and whatever, make sure it's the run. Be a good run blocker. You don't have to be be a good run blocker so we can get these running backs out on the edge. And if you can do that right there, you will help this team 100%, because running will be a healthy part of what we do. Wisconsin, Badgers, run.
Hey, they're known for toughness up there.
Yeah.
Now, really quickly, there's a group of tight ends behind them: Jeremy Sprinkle, Sean McEwen, Peyton Hendershot. Who else makes this team if you had to put it on them?
I think they like Hendershot. I think Sprinkle hasn't been available, but I think Sean McEwen gets the nod.
Okay.
Availability is the best. Take the other two that's available, and whoever, let's go with them.
Make it work. I mean, the Cowboys love their 2 tight end sets. Plenty to look forward to. Also, plenty to look forward to at the safety position. Has that turned into a pure strength for the Dallas Cowboys defense? When we come back with more Special Edition.
This segment was brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas.
Just a ball mentality. We talk about the ball every day, whether it's a strip sack or a forced fumble or a pick. We pride ourselves on getting the ball. I see nothing different with this year, the way we're approaching everything, and just going out there and trying to compete and get better every day. We're going out there and we know the numbers that we had last year. We're trying to beat that.
Jayron Kearse with 90-plus tackles a year ago, brought to you by Reliant. Speaking on, well, he's trying to do the same thing this year. He's the first one since, well, our very own Barry Church to have 90-plus tackles as a safety since 2014. So back here with Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton will be joined in our next edition of Special Edition with Barry Church. Thank goodness. We're almost back home to Texas, but wrapping things up here on the West Coast. And let's speak to Kearse and what he brings to this defense. Can he have an encore season?
Yes. Yes, he can. And the reason why is because of he's shown what he's capable of. They gave him the check, right? They said, hey, we see what you've done. We believe in you. We trust you. Oh, and by the way, we're going to give you some assistance, okay? We're going to give you some guys up front. We're going to allow you to come down into the box. We got Donovan Wilson. We have Malik Hooker. We have guys that can give you some assistance so that you don't have to always be in the back of the bus. We need you down there and being effective at the line of scrimmage as well.
You know, and I want to echo, the guys up front should make it much easier. You know, if he has 90 tackles this year, that'll be a great thing. That means them guys up front are doing their job.
Well, and you have Malik Hooker back there as well, a veteran who came in and played 15 games last year. Is kind of a move it or prove it type of season. He proved it. He had 45 tackles in his own right. Can he be the perfect complement to Jayron Kearse and what he brings to the table, Nate?
Yeah, I think he can. But you know what? I think Wilson got something to say about that. There's some competition back there. A young Marquise Bell who's just vying for a spot through special teams. It's some competition back there, and it's been a long time since we've said.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it takes the pressure off of Kearse to have to always be in the back end of it. And the one thing that we've seen a lot during this camp is Dan Quinn likes to run these three safety sets, and what it does is it keeps those guys back there in passing downs. But whenever they need some run support, they're able to walk Kearse right up there, and all of a sudden you got Donovan Wilson and you got Malik Hooker, who both have range, and they both like to lay some hitting on people too.
So is this as deep as the safety position has been in maybe a decade, maybe more than that? It might be 2 decades by the last time we've seen the safety position look like this. How concerned, or maybe not even concerned, it's probably not the right word, but how excited does that get you about the back end of this defense?
It makes me very excited because it gives you the versatility, again, to be able to address whatever looks teams have. Whatever offense you play in, we did this game just against the Chargers. Yeah. These guys have receivers up the wazoo. They have Gerald Everett. They have all these guys that are capable of going down the field. Well, now all of a sudden, now you can walk a Kearse up there and put hands on a big tight end, and you can still have your 2 cover safeties. It's amazing what you can do when you have personnel.
I just love it, man. It's been, like you said, almost a decade and a half of not having competitive safeties. Yeah. We've had a bunch of guys that stood back there and filled the role, but we got guys that can do more than just a role. We got guys that can make plays.
Now, speaking on that, anybody on the back end of that safety depth chart that has impressed you more than the others? You mentioned Bell, you mentioned Hooker. I mean, anybody stick out to you specifically throughout training camp?
I just seen Wilson. Whenever he's had opportunity, he's been in there. He banged this past week a lot with these guys, just giving them a little extra thing, letting them, hey, I'm Wilson, I'm back here, you know what I'm saying?
He's trying to get back to that 2020 Donovan Wilson where he had the big plays and he had some of that mentality. He's certainly found that, and he's healthy. That's another big thing, and everybody looks healthy going into the regular season. When we come back, we tell you about how training camp shifts to Frisco with more Special Edition.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, was brought to you by Ford F-Series, the best-selling truck in Texas. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. And by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to continue to work on everything. We've only, 3 weeks in or so. So, I mean, everything's got to continue, got to get better. We've got another 2 or 3 weeks before this gets real. So when we get back, we're just going to continue to focus in on the details. Obviously, control the things we can control. You look at the last game, get better at the penalties, self-inflicting errors, and just keep pushing, trying to stack good days on top of good days, work on our chemistry and all that aspects of the offense.
Here it is, the Cowboys returning back to training camp in Frisco, Texas, Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, and the fans out there in the DFW area will have an opportunity to go see the Dallas Cowboys August 23rd and 24th. That's Tuesday and Wednesday at Ford Center at the Star. Go there. It's a fun night, Cowboys night coming up on Tuesday. Plenty going on and plenty for the family. Back here with the final segment of Special Edition, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Guys, really quickly, what do you want to see from this Cowboys team as they get back to Texas?
Continue consistency.
Consistency, intensity.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, I asked for quick. That's exactly what I got. Remember, Cowboys back home in Frisco, and then, of course, their final preseason game next Friday coming up against the Seattle Seahawks. But for everybody here in Costa Mesa, California, wrapping things up at Chargers training camp, the Cowboys getting back to Texas. For Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Yeomans. We'll see you next time.